Our Highland ancestors were masters of their land, and warriors and cattle drovers often had to travel for many days in remote areas on foot with only the basic survival essentials they could carry. Over the past 2 years, I've been piecing together the clues left in the historical records and experimenting with historical equipment in the field on multi-day expeditions and overnight camps in the wild in order to experience firsthand the rugged Scottish landscape and harsh weather conditions the way our ancestors did. In this video, I will share what I've discovered so far and do a complete rundown of the clothing, equipment, food and tools that a typical Highlander traveller may have carried around the 17th century. So, stay tuned. Hi folks, Tom from Fandabi, Dozi and tomlanghorn.com. Thanks for tuning in. So some of the information I'm going to cover in this video is new to the channel, but some of the items I've discussed in more detail in past videos. So I'll put a link to all those past videos in the video description, or I'll put banners up. So go check that out. I'll also put the names of the main books that I found useful in my research. That being said, researching this topic has not actually been that easy, and I've had to fill the holes in the historical records by looking at similar cultures at the same sort of time period, seeing what sort of materials or things were being traded in Scotland, and then just sort of going out into the field and testing my theories, seeing if they work or not. Also, all the kit has been put together on a relatively small budget. Some things I've had to make and some things I've just had to accept as close enough. So I'm going to be running through the kit through the lens of wilderness survival skills. I'll touch upon some different weapons that someone might have carried, but this kit isn't really of someone who would have been on a war campaign. The first priority in survival is maintaining your core body temperature, and your clothing is your first line of defence for that. So what sort of clothing was the average Highlander wearing? Now, it would have differed depending on the wealth of the person, but generally, let's start from the top. We have the Highland bonnet, or bonnage in Gaelic, and this was made out of a dense wool, sometimes like almost felted or boiled wool. It was typically worn in the 17th century in this sort of cap configuration, and I finally managed to get mine into this shape after I've had to felt it a few times so it stays in this shape. But you can wear it in different configurations depending on the temperature and the weather. Next, typically people had some sort of linen scarf. Now this obviously helps regulate your temperature. Even on a hot day, you can moisten it in a stream, wrap it around your neck, and it's going to help cool you down. But it's got many other uses. You can use it as a makeshift bag, pre-filter your water, you can use it to bundle up food, and you can use it as a makeshift bandage. Next we have a linen shirt, potentially some sort of wool undergarment. Then typically either a wool, leather or sheepskin waistcoat, and this is really good for keeping that core warm. And then on top of that, some sort of dense wool jacket to keep you warm. Now the fantastic thing about wool is that it maintains 80% of its insulative value even when it's soaking wet. So this is actually a jacket from a modern kilt dress, and I've just changed the collar and things like that to make it a bit more historical looking, and also a more effective jacket at keeping you warm. From the legs down, people were often going completely bare-legged and barefooted. But also sort of wool trousers called trews were common. People also wore wool stockings, wool hose, things like that. The shoes were often made from rawhide or leather, usually just very, very simple shoes. Wealthier people could have afforded nicer ones with buckles and things like that. And finally, the garment of many uses and many names. You can call it the plaid, the plaid, Brechin and Ailey, the Feileadh-mhor, or just the Great Kilt. So this was not only their main outer garment, it could also be used as their sleeping bag. It could be used as an anorak to make a makeshift shelter, and in some configurations you can have large pockets that you can use to carry equipment. So it had so many different uses. It was usually made from a fairly dense, heavy wool fabric that often still contained many of the natural oils, so it was fairly waterproof as well. And in terms of the tartan pattern, there would have been variations between different regions of Scotland and clans, but there wasn't specific clan tartans until later on. There probably would have been a simpler pattern than the one I'm wearing now, and they would have used local plants to dye the wool. So potentially they would have been fairly camouflaged, and they would have been specific to the plants of the surrounding area of where they were made. Now, there's some great stories of Highland mercenaries fighting alongside soldiers from other areas of Europe, and the Highlanders being specifically noted for their ability to withstand the cold and bad weather due to wearing their mighty plaids. So it's been really fun experimenting with this garment I keep on finding new ways to use it and wear it every time I go out. So speaking of Celtic history, I'm currently doing a fascinating course with the Great Courses Plus called The Celtic World, which looks at the history of the Celtic people right from the first observations made by the Romans and Greeks all the way to when many Scots and Irish emigrated to America. The Great Courses Plus is a subscription-based, on-demand video learning service, and through your subscription you get access to a huge library of over 11,000 video lectures about pretty much anything that interests you, from science, history, literature, or even cooking, both modern and historical, or learning a musical instrument. Lectures are given by experts in their field from Ivy League universities or organisations like National Geographic, and new content is released monthly. What I really like about it is you can download the audio of the lectures onto your device, so you can learn while you're doing other things, you know, cooking the dinner, washing the dishes, driving your car, so it frees up a lot of learning time. I'm also doing a course called Surviving Any Disasters. It looks at learning the fundamentals of preparation, reaction and recovery in emergency situations. I'm also doing a course called The Meaning of Life, which looks how cultures throughout the world and ages have tried to answer the ultimate question. So in the short period of time I've been on it, I'm already learning about my Celtic ancestors, how to survive the apocalypse and the meaning of life, all in one subscription. So that's pretty good. So you can try it out for free by going to www.thegreatcoursesplus.com/Fandabi or click the link in the video description and start learning today. So now onto the belt kit and knives. Now a good knife is going to be your most important tool in a survival situation, as it allows you to manipulate the environment around you and create some order in the chaos. Now a Highlander could have typically carried at least one or all three of these knives at any given time, and simply put, you've got a small, medium and large. The smallest, we've got the famous Scottish ski and do, and we've got the ski and acklays, and then finally the dirk or B-tack in Gaelic. So the ski and do is the famous Scottish knife, and it's still worn in the sock as part of the modern kilt dress, and this was the Highlanders' typical small everyday knife for eating food, small whittling tasks, and it could be used as a last resort weapon. Next we have a ski and acklays, or the medium size knife, and this was often associated as an armpit knife, so worn either in a sort of holster that was close to your armpit or actually attached to your waistcoat. This one looks pretty different to the historical examples. The historical examples look more like a medieval hunting knife. You could use for different tasks as well as butchering animals and things like that. Finally, we have the biggest one. We have the dirk or B-tack. I've done a couple of videos on the dirk already, but just generally this was mainly a weapon. This was mainly a stabbing weapon used by itself or with other weapons in battle. But you know, it could be used as a cutting tool for preparing firewood and butchering animals, but as I said, it's mainly designed for fighting. But the dirk also had great cultural significance, and warriors would swear oaths upon them, and this was actually considered more powerful than swearing upon a Bible. So after cutting tools, your main priority is some sort of method of getting a fire going. So this is my fire pouch on my belt kit. Open it up. Now the most common method of lighting fire during this time period was flint and steel. Now, there's a couple different designs of steel strikers left in museums. One of them is sort of simple one with a slight sort of snail shaped tail on the end, or a more sort of classical shape with these more decorative spirally bits. Now flint is not that easy to find in the Highlands, but it was being traded. But you can also use something like quartz, which does work, just doesn't last as long as a good bit of flint. And the tinder people were most likely using was amadou, made from the horseshoe fungus, which is spongin in Gaelic. Now, I've been using a char tin most of the time, which admittedly is probably not that historically accurate for this time period in Scotland, but other cultures were using it, and it's got the advantage that I can make charred material from multiple kind of waste products or dead wood. The way I have my char tin is I've got charred material at the bottom, so it's separated with a waterproofed bit of leather, and then on top I can fit bits of cordage, beeswax candle, things that are going to help extend my flame, and then I can also fit my flint and this smaller steel inside, so it's all just one little package. So this is a really nice way of having my fire kit that I've got used to. Also in my fire pouch I've got some birch bark, helps extend my flame, and then at the bottom I've also got some cattail fluff, the cattail seed heads, and this is really good for making tinder bundles. So this all fits into a single pouch with a drawstring, and I treated all my leather work with a mixture of rendered animal fat and beeswax, so this hopefully waterproofs all that kit inside there. Now in Burt's letters he does talk about Highlanders lighting fires by rubbing sticks together, but he doesn't say whether that's bow drill or hand drill. But here's a part of a bow drill set I sometimes carry. I can make the bow quite easily out in the field if I just carry some good cordage on me. But sometimes I carry the spindle, the hearthboard, and a bearing block made from some limpet shells. This works really well. So now onto my sporran. Now sporran just means purse in Gaelic, and that's all it really was, a simple leather pouch. Now I made both these pouches just from an old leather jacket, and I'll show you what I got in here. So I've got a red deer antler little buckle there, and a drawstring. This keeps everything nice and dry most of the time. I've got some natural cordage, things binding stuff together. Natural cordage can also be used to make a tinder bundle to help get my fire going. Very important, I've got a wee cloth bag filled with oatmeal. So oatmeal was the main carbohydrate for the Highlanders, and this could be, you know, just mixed with cold water for a quick snack. People often would bleed their cattle and mix the oats with blood to make a sort of black pudding. Obviously you can make porridge, you can mix it with butter and water to make oat cakes, which I've done a video on. It's a really multifunctional carbohydrate, and just with a bag that size full of oatmeal, I've done a 3-day expedition. Obviously I was quite hungry, but it does keep you going. I've also got a little spoon I carved to eat my porridge. And then finally, I've got a blanket pin. Sometimes I use this to put my plaid on, but it does over time damage the fabric. But I can use this to make a tripod to put over my fire, and the spike I can use as a makeshift awl, so I can use this to make a new pair of shoes, or, you know, repair my equipment. Something else I've occasionally been carrying on my belt is a small wooden cup, which is cuach in Gaelic. It's where we get the word quaich. Sometimes I carry this, sometimes I don't, but if I'm not carrying a backpack, this is useful for me to quickly eat my oats. A good staff or walking stick was also an important tool for travelling on foot to help walk on rough terrain, aid in crossing rivers, herding your cattle, but also as a self-defense weapon. So now let's go over the historical pack I've been working on. Now there is plenty of stories of Highlanders going out with just their belt kit and what they can fit in their plaids, and this is certainly doable, and I've tried it out before. But when you're talking about going into the colder months or longer trips, you definitely do need to be carrying some extra supplies. I've already done a video discussing different historical methods of that, but the main one I've been using is called a blanket roll, which simply put, it's just you bundle your belongings inside your sleeping system and tie it together with a strap or a rope. Now the advantage to this is that it's pretty lightweight and everything is multifunctional all the way to the tump line or strap. I've done a video that I used the actual strap as a ridge line for my shelter and sleeping system. So everything is multifunctional in it, so it's got a beautiful simplicity to it. But the disadvantage to it is that it takes quite a bit of practice to pack it properly without things falling out or coming unraveled, and you know, it's quite difficult to just get things in and out of your pack. And I found that once it gets to a certain size and weight, then it starts to becoming a bit awkward. But the thing I've been trying out recently is a woven basket or basket pack. And now these were being used in the Highlands, and they were called creels, and they were made from willow. Now although you're adding some extra weight of the actual pack itself, the advantage to this is that, you know, you have a rigid structure that you can pack things in, so it's much easier to get things in and out, to pack things, and also it stops things getting crushed in the bedroll. If you're putting oat cakes or something and rolling it up, it's likely things are going to get crushed, so that's quite a big advantage. Also, these straps, I can wear it like a sort of normal backpack, and it's much easier to distribute the weight on your shoulders. So this is my tump line that's holding my skin in place, and this is made from a natural cordage. So this is held in place. On top I've got my sheepskin. This is from a Hebridean sheep from my cousin's croft, and I've been mainly using this as my sleeping mat. So it's fairly thick wool. I've waterproofed the skin side of it, and so generally I've been making a mattress from vegetation and then putting this on top, and it really does help maintain your core body temperature, stop the earth from sucking away all your body heat. This is a rabbit skin I recently cured. I'm going to find some uses for that in the future. This is my water bottle. It's made from leather soaked in beeswax. It holds about half a litre to 75 cl. It's been working really well. Also got some natural cordage. This is made from the leaves of cattail. And then this is my cooking kit. Cook kit is all bundled up in some linen cloth. This again is multifunctional. I have my trusty whiskey flask made from a sheep's horn. We've got a video on how I made that. Obviously whiskey was very important for our ancestors for many reasons. Now I've also been experimenting carrying this. So this is a shell from a scallop. Now this was the original quaich, you could say, which is a ceremonial cup for sharing whiskey. You know, the word quaich just comes from cuich, which means cup. So I've been experimenting carrying this. Obviously it's fairly fragile, but you can use it to eat your porridge in. You can use it to melt butter gently on the fire for when making oatcakes and things like that. I don't carry it all the time just because it's fragile, but it's really pretty and it's got some history to it. Now the book The Drove Roads of Scotland, it describes some general food that a drover might carry. So other than oatmeal, what they might carry is some basic root veg, things like carrots, turnips, onions, and often their butter was wrapped in dock leaves. This just, you know, helped keep it all together, kept it clean, and dock leaf is also multifunctional. It can be used as a medicine for upset stomachs. I've also got a wee homemade leather bag of salt that can be used for curing meats and flavouring my food. Now small metal pots that someone could use while camping has actually been quite hard to find in my research. Obviously people had bigger pots, but because metal was expensive, you tend to just have a few pots that was used for the whole family. So small ones like this were not all that common. But just for ease of camping, I managed to find this smaller cooking pot. And finally, I've got a little wooden bowl for eating my porridge. Let's see what else I got in here. I've also got the lid of my pot, which, you know, that could be used to make oatcakes. Now in my research, if someone wasn't carrying a pot, then sometimes they carried a flat stone or just a metal plate that you could use to make oatcakes, simple bannock breads and stuff like that. So I've been experimenting just using this thick bit of slate to cook my oatcakes on, and it has been working. It's not as useful as a pot. Here I've got a little kit that I call my maintain and repair kit. I've got some spare natural cordage. Obviously this is stuff that I bought, but you could make this from locally available natural fibres. And then here it's just another wee cloth bag that's got some things to help repair and maintain my kit. So I've got a small knife. You could also add an awl. Something that's missing is a needle, probably a bone needle or a small iron needle for repairing my kit. I've got some cordage I made from nettle fibres. I've also got some beeswax and some pine resin. Now these are both very, very useful materials for making glues, waterproofing kit, fire extenders. I've also got a small bundle of hemp cord. So hemp and linen was being traded in the Highlands. Obviously it's a very good cord, and all this stuff, just a few extra tools, bits and bobs. If I added a needle to that, then that's a good sort of extra bits of kit to help repair and maintain my rest of my equipment. Finally, what I've got is just an extra wool blanket. And what I've been doing when I'm camping out is basically just a very simple layering system. So I'll just add extra wool blankets. I need to get some more animal skins, but I want to get a deer skin. So you can basically add extra wool blankets, extra animal skins, depending on the weather conditions and the time of year that you're going to go out. So I hope you enjoyed this video, folks. All this kit is a product of 2 years of pretty constant research and testing in the field, but it's constantly changing and evolving as I learn new things and as I practice and test these out. So it will probably be different this time next year. A few things I want to add to this kit and that I'm working on. I'm working on a historical fishing kit, and I'm also working on how to carry weapons with all of this, so I can experiment how a warrior might have travelled on a war expedition, how he could attach his weapons in the most efficient way in terms of weight distribution, but also ease of access to that weapon. Huge thanks to all my patrons for helping support the channel. I release extra content on that Patreon page for anyone's interested. Huge thanks to the Great Courses Plus for sponsoring this video. Please go check out that link, guys. I genuinely think it's a really good learning resource. So I hope you enjoy this. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Cheers, folks.